Hi everyone, I'm JD from Willowbound Journals. This video is part of a series where I'm making a journal from start to finish for the Mental Health Giveaway Challenge that is raising money for Beyond Blue, which is an organisation in Australia that helps with things like depression, anxiety and suicide, mental health awareness, that kind of thing. 50% will go to that, and 50% will also go to a book that I am working on for my own well-being, and hopefully will help others with their own well-being as well. So to enter the giveaway and be part of this fundraiser, people are donating crafty items that will be made into $10 mystery packs. The last time we did this, 40 ladies from around the world donated and 100 packs were sold, which was so amazing. And donations were open till the end of February, but I'm going to extend that deadline. People are still emailing me and messaging me wanting to be involved, and what I thought is perhaps I'll just extend that deadline to the end of March, and I'll just continue making up mystery packs as they come in. I've had questions about when they will be available. I'm going to wait until there's a few more donations, because I would like as many donations to be represented in each mystery pack. And then as more come in, because donations are coming in from overseas, they're going to take a while to arrive, and as more come in, I can continue making up more packs and possibly keep making packs throughout the year and have this be a running series throughout the year, because it is close to my heart. Advocating for mental health and talking about it, speaking up about it, so people know that they're not alone and that there's no taboo, that we can talk about mental health the way that we talk about the weather. If you would like to donate crafty items, feel free to email me and to be entered into this giveaway for this journal. You can also donate directly to Beyond Blue or to my book fundraiser, and all the links and information will be down below. And while I'm sharing my process making this journal, I am sharing some of my journey with mental health. Just a caveat, as always, this is only my perspective and I don't speak for all people on this topic. In the first video, I started by just sharing some tips of how to respond and not to respond when people talk about mental health. In the second video, I shared about my struggle with existence and how I've always had phases of depression and anxiety. That just part of the ups and downs of life and part of my natural temperament. And there's no stigma about that. In the third video, I shared what depression and anxiety was like for me when I went through them in 2015 and 16 and what I learned from that experience. In the fourth video, I shared what helped me through anxiety specifically. And in this video, I want to share about one of the biggest tools that helped me through both anxiety and depression, and that is acceptance commitment therapy, which is ACT for short. And first, I must say, I'm not an expert in psychology or anything, so I may be using some terms incorrectly. So just, do your own research in this, and this is literally just me sharing in my own words my experience of what helped me. And second, I also must say that this isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. What works for one person might not work for another. So it's about finding what works for you. Basically, I got to such a low point in 2015-16 that I was willing to try as many things as it took to find something that helped me. I was pretty much just completely self-destructing. I felt like I didn't even exist anymore. And so I got to the point where I was just like, I will try anything. And I thought that I tried lots of things, and you heard me talk about in the previous videos what helped. But one of the things that I thought would help was CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. An artist that I actually looked up to, she was talking about CBT and she said that worked for her. So I was like, oh, cool, that's going to work for me too. And I'd also heard, reading other stories about other people talking about CBT and how, it really helped them. So I was pretty much convinced that CBT would work for me. And I went to a psychologist eventually, and the psychologist was working with me with CBT, and I was like, yeah, awesome, this is going to be great, this is going to be the thing that helps me. And yes, in some ways it definitely was helpful and in very specific cases. And, you know, as an overall tool, I definitely know its value. It's definitely a helpful tool. I have definitely used it in my own life for specific things, and it has helped. And I can see it as a very wonderful tool for sure. But for me back then, as an overall tool to tackle depression and anxiety back in 2015-16, it wasn't just not helpful for me. In a way, it was kind of harmful. And this was just because I was in such a place of distress that to suggest to face my fears as a way of finding out that they weren't true, that felt like just pushing me over the edge. And it welled up this anger in me. So, and it sort of made me want to punch the person in the face for suggesting it. Not that I'd ever do that, of course. And it wasn't like an actual real impulse or anything. It was just, that's the words I used to describe the feeling that I had. It's like, how dare you? Like, it felt like how dare you suggest such a thing? Like, if you were in my shoes, you would know never to suggest such a thing to me. Because I would never want to make someone feel stressed or angry or afraid, and to suggest that to me, to what CBT was suggesting for me to do at that time, was just like, no, don't even go there. And, you know, I was confused by this anger that was coming up because I'd never really experienced anger before, because, of course, I suppressed it back then. I thought feelings were bad things. And so depression and anxiety actually was a helpful thing that finally let me express some feelings and know what I was feeling. Anyway, that's a whole other journey. Maybe I'll share that in a different video. But yeah, this was the first time that I started feeling angry, and I'm like, what's happening? I don't understand. And yeah, the whole CBT thing just left me a bit confused, because I'm like, that didn't help. That didn't work for me. And now I'm like, you know, yeah, just really confused. And I blamed myself. I was like, there must be something wrong with me. It's my fault that it's not working. Is there something I'm doing wrong? Because it worked for this artist and it worked for all these other people. What am I doing wrong that it's my fault? And so one thing I want to share here is that I learned in this journey that it's not your fault. Again, I'll repeat it. What works for one person doesn't always work for everyone. And it's just a matter of trying things. You know, you might try something and think, this is going to fix me. It's like, no, you might have to try 20 different things more until you find something that helps you. You know, and what helps one person is not a guarantee that it's going to help you. So just keep looking around. And I know it can be discouraging when another thing doesn't work and another thing doesn't work, but just keep trying. Keep trying, because you're unique, you're you, and your specific other things might help you that don't work for other people. Anyway, which brings me to ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy, and I discovered it not through a psychologist. I discovered it through my own reading and research, and it was through a book called The Happiness Trap. Love this book, recommend it. This was the biggest book that helped me. I read like 20 books on depression and anxiety during that time, and this is the one that really started to change things for me. So, in my words, acceptance commitment therapy is about accepting the way things are and committing to living your best life you can anyway. So accepting that for me, I was depressed and anxious, and committing to living the best life anyway. That works for me. Might not work for you. It's a very values-based approach, and so this was right off my alley, you know, and this is probably why the technique worked for me, because it speaks my language and lines up with who I am. And those taking the Intentional Life course know all about this. You know, I'm huge on values and living according to your values to live a meaningful life, and that sums up ACT pretty much in a nutshell. And that's why it resonated with me. It's about living your life with purpose and meaning anyway, no matter how bad you feel, no matter how much I hated myself, to still live according to my values. Anyway, so I see CBT as a technique to change your thoughts and feelings, basically. Whereas ACT, I see it as a way of accepting your thoughts and feelings. Totally different approach in my book. And because for me, CBT, it seems a bit more, I don't know, forceful, a bit more violent in a way, and it's not. Like, this is just how I see it from my perspective. to change your thoughts and feelings. I tried that. I tried really hard to change my thoughts and feelings. It was a battle. It was exhausting, and it didn't work for me. Whereas ACT, much more peaceful, much more calm, much more accepting and forgiving and grace giving, like I felt. And of course you can take all of that mindset into CBT, but just for me, ACT resonated, and this is how I saw it. And so finally, when I realized that I didn't need to change my thoughts and feelings, when I realized I could accept them, like that was mind blowing to me. I didn't know. Like the whole time I thought I needed to change it. I had to get the depression, anxiety away from me. And it's like to have this realization that I could just accept it. I was like, really? And it felt so nice. It felt like a breath of fresh air. All the things, a relief. It felt like a burden off my shoulders. It felt freeing to just be like, I can accept this. And for me, what it came down to is just, it's okay to think and feel the way I do. And it's okay if I think and feel this way forever. That's okay. And a lot of the time you have this stigma in society. Oh, you can't feel that way. There's something wrong with you. We need to change you. We need to fix you. It's like, no, ACT is all about, no, if you feel this way the rest of your life, there's nothing wrong with you. You're all good. And for me, it doesn't just stay with there. It's about committing, like you accept it. That's the first half. And the second half is living the best life you can anyway. And so that's what I realized. I realized, for me anyway, this might not be true of anyone else, but for me, I realized even if I hated myself, even if I felt awful every day of my life, I could still live according to my values, and I could still live a meaningful life. It might not be, the greatest life ever, but it could still be meaningful within my situation. And that was enough for me. Again, it might not be enough for other people, but that's enough for me. And so paradoxically, it was when I finally accepted that it was okay to have depression and anxiety, that the depression and anxiety lifted, that things started to change. And it was when I realized that depression and anxiety didn't have to stop me from living a life of value and meaning, that things, started to change. Because now I was starting to live with meaning. Like when I was in that place of depression and anxiety, no purpose, no meaning, I've just felt completely lost and meaningless. Like, why am I even here? But then even with my depression and anxiety, and I started living according to my values and with meaning, I could still have the depression and anxiety because I was living with meaning now. I could still create. I could still express myself. I could still make a difference in the world with my depression and anxiety. And that's what mattered to me. Simply to live with meaning and purpose. And I found out essentially that for me it was possible with or without depression and anxiety. And because that's my values. My values are to create, to add more beauty to the world, and to help other people. And we can help people even when we have depression and anxiety. More so even. People with depression and anxiety can help other people who are going through depression and anxiety when others who don't have it can't. People with it can help more in a way. And for me, that was enough. That made life worth living. If I could help one person with my depression and anxiety, great. So depression and anxiety would make me feel stuck. But all I had to do to get unstuck was point in the direction of any one of my values and head towards it. And for example, one of my values is creativity. So I realized that no matter how dark I was feeling and no matter how much self-hatred I had, I could still create. I could put all of my darkness and all of my hatred into my art. I could write, I hate myself, 100 times on the page. And that still has worth. Because someone else out there might have that exact same feeling, and they need to know that that's okay to express and that's okay to feel. And even just for me, the act of putting it on paper is an act of validation. It's saying, you're allowed to feel this. You're allowed to hate yourself. Because often when we tell people, they're like, oh, no, you're wonderful. How dare you hate yourself? Like, no, you shouldn't hate yourself. And it's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. This is a real feeling that I'm having. And I'm okay with having this feeling. Anyway, and I could put that into a poem. I could put that into music. I could put that into a dance, and for me that was enough to have that. For me at that time, it was enough to be able to express myself creatively and later on to share that and have that connect with people. Another one of my values is order, just organization. So again, if I'm feeling stuck, as an example, if I'm feeling anxious or depressed, I know one thing that can help me is simply to declutter, organize, decorate my space. And that tiny little movement, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter in the big scheme of life. But in my life, it matters. It makes me feel better. And, that's enough. That's enough for me. And if ACT is something that speaks to you, then I definitely recommend spending time finding out what your values are. Because some of us don't know. Some of us is just so lost and feeling so empty, we have no idea. So first step, spend as long as you need finding out what your values are. For example, for me, beauty. I love beauty and I want to see beauty wherever I can. And I want to add beauty wherever I can. I love creating. I love writing. I love learning things. And that's one thing I had to learn as well back then was I felt so guilty just doing things because it made me happy. So I would be like, I can't just spend a day on the internet reading up about history or philosophy just because I enjoy it. I need to be out there in the world doing something and helping people and fixing things. And so that was another part of my journey, was learning, no, it's okay to spend my day just drawing, even though that's not going to necessarily change anyone's life. It's helping me. And even if all I'm doing is putting, a vase of flowers on my desk because it cheers me up a tiny bit, I would feel guilty for doing anything, reading a book. I'd feel guilty for that because I'm like, this isn't adding anything to life, to other people's lives. And I guess it's when I switched over to this values way of living that I just was like, yeah, no, this is life-saving. This is soul-saving to me. If I'm going to be in the world still as a fully functioning human and as a person with a self, I just have to live a values-based life. Otherwise, I won't exist. I won't be here. Because, I was self-destructing. And the thing that got me back, one of the things that helped me get back was just doing things that gave me a bit of joy. Reading, learning something, doing things just for me that I would feel guilty about previously, but now it's like, this is life or death now. This is life stakes here. And that has so much worth then. If it saves a life, man, if that's helping you, do not feel guilty. Go read as much, spend 20 hours a day reading if that's going to help you. And let no one be like, oh, you should get out of your room and you need to go do this and whatever. If it's at that point where your identity is at stake and your whole life and existence is at stake, man, that has value. You go and read, because that thing is life-saving. Anyway, I don't know. It could be different for everyone, but that's my experience. Where am I at? Get in connection with yourself. Find what works for you. Again, this is not an overnight thing. Do not beat yourself up if you're like, I don't know what I value. I don't know what's going to work for me. It could take years to find, and that's okay. Be very patient, compassionate and gracious and kind to yourself, because it can take a long time, and that is totally okay. Totally okay. There's no timeline with this. There's absolutely no timeline with this. So just find what works for you. ACT works for me. It might not work for you. CBT might work for you. It might not. DBT might work for you. There's lots of different things out there. Lots and lots and lots of different techniques and tools in therapy, and basic things like reading a book or learning. For me, that was my own personal toolkit. Reading a book, watching a movie, creating, journaling, listening to music. For me, other people might be going for a walk, cooking, traveling, spending time in nature, whatever. Find what works for you, and don't feel guilty for what works for you. So yeah, even though that was the biggest tool that helped me and it got me through, along with some other things, depression and anxiety, and I no longer have clinical depression and anxiety like I did back then, even though I always will have those phases throughout my life. I'm okay with that. I still use these tools all the time, ACT. And that's what I mean by these tools aren't just for people with depression and anxiety, because every single person struggles. Every person has phases where they don't like themselves. Every person has phases where they're unmotivated, where they're feeling down, where, everyone has these struggles. And so ACT can help with all of those, which leads me to this next tool that ACT gave me, aside from the values-based life and besides a acceptance way of living. It gave me this 2 questions. Is this helpful? And what can I do that will help right now? So if I'm, for example, in a cycle of negative self-talk, I hate myself, I'm the worst, I'm not good enough, no one likes me, I'm nothing, I can get stuck in those cycles. One thing I can do to get out of that cycle is simply ask myself, is this helpful? No, it doesn't actually achieve anything. It's true that I might feel those things, but in the scheme of my life, does it actually help me or anyone else? Or just me? It doesn't achieve anything. It makes me feel worse. I'm just stuck there. So I asked the question then, what can I do right now that will help me most? And it might change from time to time, but at one particular time, it might be read a book so that I'm not thinking those thoughts anymore. At a different time, that might not be enough because I'm still thinking them and I can't, the book isn't enough. And so it might just literally be, all right, get up, get out of the house, see someone, because then that will get me out of my thoughts. And often what happens is just 1 hour away from my thoughts is enough for me to be like, oh, I'm not thinking those anymore. Because now I'm thinking about what's for dinner. Now I'm thinking about what I need to do today. And now I'm thinking about, I really want to do this thing now. And that's just enough. Just in that one little moment, that was the helpful thing. So if I'm getting stuck, I can remember those questions. Is this helpful? And what can I do right now that will help me most? So I'll leave you with those questions in case they help you, because I think they can help anyone, no matter what you're going through. All right, so that is ACT in a nutshell for me and how it helped me. I hope that was enlightening or useful in some way. And then, I will be back later on with I think it's the last video in this series where I'll share more of my journey. And then I'll do a flip through of this completed giveaway journal. And I think even after I finish this journal making series, I might continue sharing my journey because there's a lot more to say. And I just want to keep sharing this, for the rest of the year, for the rest of my life. Again, I hope you can see, like, when I'm sharing this, I'm talking about just the way I talk about, how I feed my cat or how I go out and do stuff. It's not taboo. There's no shame. There's no judgment. People have depression and anxiety. People struggle. It's all good. We're allowed to struggle. It's all good. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope you got something out of this video, and I will see you guys when I see you next. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for all the comments as well, and all the support, and just with the fundraiser and everything, all the ways that people are getting involved. It's really wonderful, and it's so good to see, and we'll continue coming together throughout this year around mental health. And I'm glad that this is something I can do this year, be really intentional about this, a topic that's close to my heart, and it feels good. It feels like I'm living with purpose and meaning this year doing this, so I want to keep doing it. Anyway, hope you're all really well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys. Thank you to my beautiful patrons who supported me in January. If you would like to become a patron in February, and the link is down below, and that is where you get access to extra videos, all my printables, all my digital kits in my Etsy. There are post tiers, mail tiers, and journal tiers as well. There is a Marco Polo tier and just lots of fun stuff over there. There is also a link to all of my available courses down below in the description box. You can join those anytime for all of my Patreon and courses. They're monthly subscriptions that work just like Netflix or Spotify, and you're charged on the date that you sign up, and you can cancel anytime.